Hi, it's Christy Lister here with Beyond the First Response. And how's everybody doing today? Good.
Doing great. Yeah.
Awesome. Robin Michael, my co-host, and our special guest, Robert Swideraski. We all have our coffee ready to roll, or our beverage in which may be in our cup. We don't really know. That's okay.
Right.
Whatever works, right? So with that
Yep.
being said,
The
we are
mascot is asking to.
he's asking to what?
Sorry, the recognized over here.
Yeah.
Come
Oh,
here.
yes. For those who are just listening, instead of viewing our YouTube video, we have a mascot. His name is what is
Buddy.
it? Buddy.
Buddy.
I should know that by now. He's a cute little chihuahua and he's
I don't know
feisty.
about. Yeah.
He's feisty. He's like the kids. Enough said. He's like a 17-year-old teenage girl.
Is that girl versus boy?
Yes. Yes. Boys are so much easier. Robert, do you have any kids?
I do. I have two daughters. My oldest daughter, Jody, is 29, and my Aubrey is 15. So
Okay, so you've experienced. So did they get easier after 17?
yes, yeah. Like I'm love the conversations with my 29-year-old daughter. It's adult conversations, and I get to experience her as an adult and to see the amazing human being that she's grown up to be.
That's awesome.
So,
There's hope. My
yeah.
daughter's a beautiful soul, but teenage girls.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all I can
I should
say.
also mention, so my girlfriend Catherine has two kids that are a part of my everyday life, and Bradford is 10 and Charlotte. So I have some younger ones here in the house that it's really a privilege to be a parent in their lives. I'm so lucky because it's a great experience for me. Like I'm learning more about me as I'm caring for them.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, good. And thank you for doing that for them. Every child needs a
Mhm.
good role model
Yes.
of both
Totally.
sexes,
Totally.
both, mom, dad type role models. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
about to have the lawnmower go by, so I might go on mute for a minute here, guys.
Okay.
No problem. Well, Robin, do you want to real quick? So we always do an icebreaker. And Robin,
We
does
lost
our
you,
icebreaker.
Christy.
My internet's
Lost you
not
for a
doing
second.
good. Am I good now?
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully it stays. I don't know what's going on. It's kind of windy, so I don't know if that has the effect.
That's what it is.
Regardless,
It's gonna be one of those episodes, I can
it
tell.
might be. It's my fault, my technical difficulties. Icebreaker wise, what is your
All right.
question?
Yeah, so we're getting into the most wonderful time of the year, right? So I'm decorating my house right now for Halloween, and I live in a neighborhood where everybody goes all out for their decorations, and this is kind of the first year that I'm getting into it.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of okay, Halloween versus Christmas, Thanksgiving. Do people really decorate for Thanksgiving? I don't know. I don't think so. But what do you think? What is your favorite holiday to do you first of all, do you decorate the house for holidays? And second, if so, which is your favorite?
Do you want me to go first?
Yes.
Yeah, this is for you.
Okay.
Lincoln.
So when okay, for sure, the holiday that I love decorating the most for is Christmas.
Okay.
So I'm currently in a smaller home, and it's actually a condo, and the outside necessarily. We'll put some lights on like the railing in our porch. But when I was in a home, um, I go crazy. Like I'm the guy that will put all the lights out on the roof, all the way around the roof, decorate the trees outside, have the real Christmas tree. put on like 1,000 lights on the tree. And I love that whole time and experience. So.
Okay, so do you charge by the hour or by the by the house? And will you fly to California?
Wow. I mean, if there's enough in it, sure.
On your dime, Robyn. That's what he's saying.
I'm having fun decorating for Halloween. It's just it's expensive.
Yeah. Oh, to have someone do it?
No, I mean just to gather all of the items that you want to do. You have this thing in your head of how it's supposed to look, but man, stuff is expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Like go to the dollar store.
Yeah, it's like a lifetime collection. Like
It
you don't
is.
just get it all one year. You keep adding to it every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm learning that it's better to buy the higher quality
Oh, yeah.
stuff because I'm pulling some stuff out of the boxes and they're like disintegrating before my eyes.
Yeah.
There's a house in a neighborhood across the way from me that has done a strangers thing where they actually have Max like
Oh,
as if she's just in up there in the air. I haven't actually physically gone and seen it. It's been a big issue. They asked all their neighbors if
yeah, I've
it was
seen it on
okay.
the news.
Yeah. So I have to get over there.
I've seen it out here.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah,
So,
it looks like it.
Yeah, I
So
can never
cool.
decorate like that. And then I get frustrated because then I'm the one that has to put it up and take it down myself because the kids don't want to help anymore. Like, why am I doing this? A humbug on me. But I did get the big skeleton this year, the big 12-foot skeleton, because I wanted.
Oh, my neighbor has that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a little skeleton that I had sitting at the dinner table for my daughter to come home, see if she noticed it. I put some meat and potatoes on a plate, a little shot glass, only because it was little.
Yeah.
And a little bib, like the napkin stuck in his ribs. And it took her like probably 2 minutes before she's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "That's our dinner guest. It was about time you said hi."
Yeah.
I'm weird
I
that
have
way.
my house has kind of a Victorian feel to it. So I'm trying to do the whole haunted house thing. And I want to do like a silhouette of a creepy bride in the window and stuff upstairs. So but it's going to take me some time. Yeah.
Right.
And I have to get creative about it that, my friend was like, you just put crates together to make the body. You don't have to like have it or anything. So
Yeah.
I have to do some YouTube research.
You can learn anything on YouTube.
Seriously,
right?
I know.
100%.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you can also check out this podcast later when we release it on YouTube under our first help page. So subscribe and get notifications when we have a new episode out. Thanks,
Yes,
Robert. So we're excited to have you, Robert, because you've done some amazing things and your heart and the passion that comes out is enormous. So it's been 2 weeks now, right?
Correct. Yes.
So
yeah, 2 weeks. In fact, today, Wednesday. So yeah, 2 weeks.
So 2 weeks ago,
right,
Robert took on Chicago Police Department's 22 districts, which holds roughly 12,000 police officers in all.
Mm-hmm.
He walked from each district across Chicago 104 miles in a 48-hour period.
Mm-hmm.
So like 48-hour straight period with just a little rest in there, correct?
Correct. 1 hour of sleep, I was able to sneak in there.
I bet you slept for days after.
I did actually. When I finally fell asleep, because I was still wired, because I was just out of it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Completely imagine. Now, would you like to go ahead and give us a little background on that and explain why you do that? And you do it through your it's your Facebook group, right? Running for Blue Lives.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So the Facebook group is really just our presence in the world. It lets people know who we are. And it's called Running for Blue Lives, because that's how it all got started. As Christy had mentioned, and I've been running all of my life. I started out, as a lot of other people, 5Ks and 10Ks, and worked my way up to doing marathons. And then 5 years ago, I completed the Chicago Marathon. And I said, what's next? And so I decided, well, I'll do something a little bit longer, a little bit bigger. So I signed up for what's called an ultra marathon, which is a distance that is anything over a marathon in length, which is a marathon is 26 miles. So I signed up for a 50-mile run.
Thank God.
And that's what I said. In fact, when I was at 50 miles,
You heard that.
I said, oh my God, this is killing me. And I had to stop after 38 miles because my feet were hurting so bad, my legs, everything. And so I learned some lessons from that. And like any other ultra marathoner, I said, what's next? Right. So since I learned the lessons, I signed up for something bigger. I signed up for I signed up for a 50K, which is a 31-mile run. And then signed up for some bigger runs that were over 100 miles in distance. And what I learned from all of that is that I have a certain talent for running these ultra long distances. And I started to think, well, what can I use this talent for? And there were some causes that were really important to me: mental health and suicide. And I've always believed that we are given certain talents, time, or treasure, and that we're not to keep those to ourselves, that we ought to use those for the betterment of another person or a cause. And I said, well, what could I do for this cause of mental health and suicide prevention? And that kind of was then the creation of what I started doing for the Chicago Police Department. And so technically this cause of raising awareness for mental health issues with the police department started a couple of years ago. And that came out of me starting to really look at the mental health issues that we have in our country as a whole. And when I started to do this research, I've always been a researcher. Like I really like to look at the data and find out what is the truth, what are the facts behind what is being said. And when I started to really understand how devastating suicide is and how big it is in our country as a whole, I just knew that I had to do something. I couldn't sit still and not participate in the and so I'm not a political figure. I don't have the power to pass laws or be a part of that. But what I can do is I can speak up. I can use my voice, and I can also use my talent for running. And so what else was a factor in my starting this cause, to address this cause, was that my dad is a retired Chicago police officer. So in addition to that, I have two uncles who are retired from the Chicago Police Department. I have a cousin who is retired from the Chicago Police Department. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. So I have a real heart for the police department, right? My best friend became police officers. And so when I started hearing about the mental health challenges, and specifically the number of suicides that the Chicago Police Department was seeing and experiencing, I just thought, well, what can I do? And so almost 2 years ago is when I had that realization. And I thought, well, what could I do in regards to running? So I was signed up to run this ultra marathon. It was a 200-mile ultra marathon in Pekin, Illinois, so right near Peoria, Illinois. And I thought, well, I'm to begin raising awareness and support for suicide prevention for the Chicago Police Department. So I partnered with the FOP, and I also partnered with the Chicago Police Memorial Foundation, and I raised money so that they could then provide mental health education for our officers. So in that race, I ended up completing 170 miles of the 200 miles. It was a very challenging race. And after that, I realized, well, I didn't hit my goal of what I wanted to raise. So now, the other factor in continuing to run was there were more suicides. Like when we hear about another suicide on the department, all of us are affected. And it affected me in a way. And I said, okay, so what am I going to do next? Like, I need to continually like speak about this and raise awareness, like get the conversation going. And then I don't know where it came from, but I had this idea of running from district to district last year. And I shared the idea with my dad. And in typical dad fashion, he goes, "Bobby, that's crazy. How you're never going to be able to do that. Hundreds of miles. How are you going to run all the way?" And I go, "Dad, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to believe, right? I'm going to believe that I can make it happen." And I started putting the pieces together. I started planning the run out, where I would start and where I would end up, right? I plotted all of the different districts on a map, and I just started connecting all the dots. And I realized, you know what, I can do this. You know, I figured it out. It was about an 80-mile distance to do that. That is just going from district to district. That doesn't include the back and forth when I'm at the district. And what I wanted to do there is I really see reality happens when a person feels so hopeless and helpless, right? That they come to a place in their life where they feel like they can no longer go on. And it's a moment in a person's life. And what I wanted to do was to share a moment of appreciation and inspiration for our officers, right? By being there for them, by letting them know that we care about them.
And you've done that in an amazing way, other than doing that, taking 12,000 pennies and carrying them in your vest, right? So you hooked those onto you.
This last walk that I did. So I used the idea of the 12,000 pennies because a penny represents asking somebody what's on their mind. And I wanted to carry 12,000 pennies to represent the thoughts and the burdens of our 12,000 officers. And again, it was just this idea that I had of, well, what can I do to inspire our officers? What can I do to let them know that they are appreciated, that they do matter, and that as a society, we need them, right? And that we really do care about them. And so I had this idea of carrying these 12,000 pennies. So what I did was I found these weighted vests, right? And I started figuring out ways where I can actually get 12,000 pennies into a vest. Well, what I found is that there's so many of them that I couldn't put it in any one vest. So I actually had to put some of these pennies in ankle weights and on another weighted belt that I have. And so I started out the walk a couple of weeks ago with these 12,000 pennies, which weighed about 75 pounds. And the idea was that once I reach each district, I would then take off of me representing the burdens and the challenges of our officers equals officers at that district. Mm-hmm. So it ended up being about 550 pennies, about 3.5 pounds at each district that I removed from my vest. Again, representing that now I'm turning over, or I'm passing on the responsibility to the officers to care for one another.
Yeah.
And so in addition to that, we also, my family and I, we painted these, in fact, I have it right here. We painted pennies, the colors of police and the colors of mental health. And it's these little pennies right here. So we painted these little pennies and we put little hearts on them. And we ended up with, we got about 5,000 of these done. We handed all of the officers these pennies as a promise that we will be back to actually give them what is going to be a challenge coin. And it's this coin that you see right here.
Mhm.
We're still in the process. And what this coin says is that it says that a penny for your thoughts and conversations save lives.
And does it have anything on the back as well, just so everybody can see?
It does. Yeah. What it does, what it shows the officer is that they're not alone,
Right.
and that they have their partners, their family, and their friends that can want to support them. And the idea of this challenge coin is that when an officer feels it, when they touch it, right? Because it's supposed to be kept in our pocket or on us, it reminds them that they matter and that they're not alone.
So you said this, you're still in the process of raising money to do these, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So where can people go in order to donate to help build those up?
Thank you. Thank you for asking. So we are raising money with the through actually with your help through the first help, the Blue Help organization. And what they can do, our GoFundMe page. And what you'd want to do is look up Operation Serve and Protect. So if you go to the GoFundMe page and look up Operation Serve and Protect, you'll find our page and the opportunity for you to, get a challenge coin in the hands of our officers.
Right. And will those be available for people to purchase as well in order to give to officers?
Yeah, we're going to do that, right? We want to make that available. Not just all, by the way, not just to give to officers, but also for the individual to hold on, a family member, right? A friend to hold on to remember to check in with our officers.
Right. And not only with the officers, but also with the admins, with the,
Yes.
dispatchers, any first
Dispatchers.
responder. It just happens to be starting with police officers. And
Exactly.
I know this year, as of the date that you walked, there had already been 6 Chicago police officers that had died by suicide.
Unfortunately, yes.
Right.
And those 6 happened within a 6-month period.
Right. And I think it's important. I think Robyn and I have had this conversation. Talking about suicide is not going to force or give somebody the idea. That idea has already been in their mind. They're broken, unfortunately,
Right.
broken, dark mind in that moment. However, we need to make it clear that having these conversations can save lives as well.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
honoring them, because I had this conversation actually with somebody the other day, and I'm trying to remember how it went. We were talking about suicide. We were talking about family life.
Mhm.
So, and work, who's to blame? There's no, the one person, often it's, hey, they took their life because they had personal issues. Well, the personal issues at that moment were probably the breaking point. But that doesn't mean that the job did not affect why they are struggling emotionally, mentally, physically. It
Right.
takes both sides, because that person is in there in that
Absolutely.
moment.
It's a culmination. Yeah, it's a culmination of the problems and challenges and issues of personal and your professional life. And what we want to look at is, well, what can we do to lessen the stress of our officers, right? There are clear and present points that can help our officers, right, to feel supported, to feel cared for. We know that officers are dealing with a astronomical amount of stress through their job, right? officers more than anybody will see these horrific events. And in seeing these horrific events, it creates this excessive level of stress and anxiety, especially when it's not dealt with, right? Especially when it's just left to ruminate in the officer's mind, right? Everyone is created differently, meaning that everyone is able to cope with stress in different ways. Some people, through their experiences in life, have been able to create strategies and coping mechanisms that help them to see something and from it that doesn't burden them or press them down. Not everybody, has had that advantage. Most people, right? It really affects them. Like, it really burdens them to see somebody being murdered. It really burdens them to see a domestic violence or another suicide or a rape victim. Like, I mean, we're human, right? We feel what other people feel. We're empathetic by nature, and so.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that I always the point that I try to push home when it's any first responder is that when a new academy comes in, new recruits come in, that it should be assumed every single one of you are going to get PTSD. You're going to get injured by post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
So we need to incorporate within the recruit classes, within the academies, teach them those coping mechanisms, teach them how to get ahead of it before it becomes a more serious problem. It already is a serious problem, but know the signs, teach the families how to look out for those signs, who to reach out to when things start to get a little bit out of control.
Yes.
Because if we can get ahead of it before it starts getting too far down the rabbit hole, it's much easier to treat. I mean, I'm not a licensed professional, but I would assume that it is.
It
and
also
causes
affects,
less damage on the family.
and it also affects family, because obviously Robyn and I have a different view of how it affects family than a child of a first responder. And I know, Robert, that you and I have talked before about the effects that it even has, I think, without us realizing. So when I joke around about my daughter, we all obviously struggle with everything that happened, but that's my release of how I feel helpless in being able to really help her get through more struggles than the average 17-year-old child goes through. How has that
Right.
affected you, or how did it affect you? And obviously you found running as your way to process and overcome. And that's fantastic, because when you say those miles, I'm like, oh my gosh, I won't run after a beer truck, let alone, anything for that. That wears me out. I'll play softball, but I won't run that far. But how did it affect, if I can ask, how did it affect you and even your siblings? I mean, I think everybody, like you said, everybody handles things differently. Clearly we would be lying to ourselves. Any type of relationship or any type of family unit, there's going to be things that affect them. But how did it affect you?
Mhm. So being the son, and I'll even say the first son, I'm the oldest of 6 children that my parents have, and being the oldest, and so my dad was a Chicago police officer. He was also a Marine, and so there was a very specific mindset to raising us kids, and specifically that mindset was realized through my brother and I. So my brother and I are the oldest, and there's about a 10-year gap and the next kids. And so my brother and I, being raised with my dad, who was a disciplinarian, he was very cut and dry with how my brother and I behaved, and when we didn't behave, there were consequences, and these consequences were significant. There was corporal punishment, right? I think that's the correct word. There was, you know, we got spanked, we got the belt. There was also grounding. You know, I can remember being grounded for an entire summer at one point. I
Wow.
mean, really,
What did you
really,
do?
you know,
No, I'm not.
I'll be honest, there was a level of fear
Yeah.
with sharing openly
Yeah.
with my mom and my dad, specifically my dad, because of the consequences that I was concerned of going through. And so I lied about grades, and I
Yeah.
wasn't the smartest kid. I was I had some learning challenges, some learning disabilities, and my specific learning disability was reading comprehension. And so school was very difficult for me, to say the least. And so my brother, on the other hand, got really good grades. I didn't. And so I didn't always want to tell my dad about how I was doing. And so I would lie a lot about how I was doing. And then there was a consequence that was in place. And so, and on top of that, and, you know, my dad and we've talked about this before. My dad, being an officer, he suppressed a lot of his challenges and issues, and he did that through alcohol.
Mhm.
So he drank a lot, and there was that, you know, alcoholism that was present in my reality growing up with my dad. And so children, right, when we're younger, uh, we don't have the maturity and the coping skills to be able to understand why adults do what they do, right? We just see things as they are, right? And that was really difficult for me. It was very, very challenging, and I had um, issues later on in life, even after I left the house, that I guess we'll call it my own mental health challenges that I dealt with, because I was still trying to figure out, you know, who I was. I was trying to figure out why I was so different from other people. And so you know, a lot of it goes back to my, I guess my upbringing, the challenges I had with my dad. Now, it wouldn't be, to be unfair to say my dad today is the sweetest man
Yeah.
out there. He is a completely different human being. Um, we're best friends,
Mhm.
to say the least, today. And he has partnered with me in these runs that I do. He's now in a wheelchair. He had an accident at work a number of years ago, and so he rides along with me on some of these walks that I do, and he's helps me to plan, and so um, I see all of those experiences that I had growing up as what has gone into forming me into the person I am today, into helping me to now uh, choose to make a difference for the lives of our officers.
And did suicide affect your life? Did it touch your life at any point, or is it something that kind of grew into the fact that you wanted to start with mental health for first responders, and it naturally morphed into suicide prevention for them?
It did affect my life when I was still figuring out who I was and not wanting to be seen by the world as someone who didn't have it together. Someone I didn't want to see, but I didn't want to be seen by the world as less than others. I didn't want to be seen by the world as someone who um, has a problem. I didn't want to be seen by the world as someone who um, doesn't have it together.
Mhm.
And so I would, while I would be in the world, meaning I had a job, I was raising a daughter. Um, I spent a lot of my time hiding from everybody. When I was by myself, didn't I didn't I didn't want to tell anybody. I certainly didn't want to tell anybody about the challenges the anxiety that I had, the stress that I was feeling. And so I would just stay in my own space and not share any of that with anybody. And so when I was 25, I got to a point where I didn't want to. I felt so hopeless and helpless, and that I didn't want to go on anymore. That I came up with a plan to end my life, and I came within 30 seconds, maybe less than that, of ending my life, and been for a distraction. I'll put it that way. I got distracted for a moment that startled me, and it helped me to see what I was about to do. I might not have been here today. And when I was startled out of that dark place that I was in, and I had a moment of clarity, I said, this has got to stop. I was about to end everything. And I then started seeking help. I started sharing, what I was going through with a very close friend of mine at the time. And then I started seeking medical, because I realized I couldn't do it on my own.
Yeah.
And that I wanted to live.
And I think the important thing is you started seeking that. That doesn't mean once you receive the medical help, if you end up taking some medicines to help you process, it's not necessarily nor always a lifetime of that. It's helping you.
Exactly.
And I think that's one of the fears people fear about getting help or going to seek help medically. They need to know it's not always a lifetime of that. It doesn't, it helps you in that moment to process and so that you can internalize and take in those coping skills that you need and the processing and work through everything that's built up. And if it is a lifetime, that's okay too. Diabetics take medicine for the rest of their life.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I take medicine probably for the rest of my life,
Right.
and I have resigned myself to that fact. I don't know what the right word was.
It's okay.
You know what I mean? That it's okay. I'm not any less of a person because I have to take this medication, and it's because there's probably a neurological problem in my brain to be able to do it. I mean that I don't do the work on top of it, because it helped me get to a place where I am enough that needs to be done. And
Absolutely.
that's okay. I'm not any less of a person because I have to take it. It's not an addiction. I hear that word used a lot with antidepressants, and I don't quite understand where people get that from. You're not an addict if you have to take an antidepressant. It's like a person who has diabetes having to take insulin.
Right.
Are they an addict because they're hooked on insulin? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway.
It's exactly true though. Well, no, absolutely. Because it is. And that is because it's okay to have to, you could still function. You're functioning as an adult, a healthy adult, by taking something that's helping you through. And I guess that kind of sounded a little bit like an addict thing, but yeah. Go ahead.
What it did for me by getting the help is it helped me to, instead of being at this really low place, this dark, deep place, it elevated me enough to be clear. So that I could say, okay, this is hard. Like I would still get anxious. I would still get depressed. And in fact, even today, I still have anxiety.
Same.
I still, have difficult moments. They're just never so low that I feel hopeless and helpless.
That you can't see the light.
I say for me, it feels like being stuck. I don't get in a place where I'm frozen and I can't take a step forward, put a foot on the floor out of bed, because that's where it takes you. The medicine
Yeah.
allows my body to move so that I can call Christy and say, I'm having a bad day.
Yes.
Like I need a pep talk, whatever it is to get me out of that.
Right.
Not frozen anymore.
Right.
Because once you get to that place of being stuck and frozen, that's where the cycle starts happening.
That's exactly what happened with me. I got to a
Yeah.
place when I was 25 where I was stuck. Like I wouldn't get out of stuck. There is this repeated thought,
Yep.
I'm worthless. It's hopeless. It will never get better. And all it does is gets louder and louder till you don't want to hear it anymore.
It's so true.
Yep.
With that, let's go ahead and take a quick break and let's talk about after, how you retell that sound in your head when you get there, whether that it's no longer, it doesn't need to be there, and this is why. So we'll be right back. We are excited to be able to start our day with Badge Brew Coffee. Hey Robyn, did you know that Badge Brew has a new charitable badge collab roast?
Hey, Christy, I thought I heard that was going to happen.
Yeah, it's called First Response Roast, with a spicy, smooth, medium roast with flavor notes of spice cake and citrus undertone.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And if that doesn't tempt our audience, a portion of the proceeds go to First Help. Oh, and don't forget, they're first responder family owned. Whether you're on day shift, night shift, or the shift of raising your family, Badge Brew has your coffee ready and waiting.
So let me ask you, what's your badge of honor? Find out by going to badgebrewcoffee.com and order yours. If you want the First Response Roast, click on Charitable Badge Collab. I know I am. All right, welcome back. And we're having an intense, beautiful, open conversation about letting people know it's okay to have to take medication, to seek medical help, to do whatever it takes to not sit so far down in the dark that you cannot see the amazing light of family, friends, life, and to quiet that voice that we all have inside when we're going through things. So, Robert, you alluded, how it gets louder and louder when you're not able to get yourself help, or when you're so far down you don't see the help that you need. Obviously, we talked about seeking help. What do you do today because we have to be real. I call it my internal bully. That never goes away.
Right.
And it seems to peak up at a moment that you don't even see it coming. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, negative Nelly here is calling me and wants me to come sit down in the dark basement with them. What's
Yeah.
something that you do to change that?
Yeah. So one of the main things I do is I take care of my health. I recognize the importance of a healthy body and how it has an effect on our mind. So one way is by getting good amount of sleep.
I love sleep. It's my favorite thing.
Yes, it's so good for you. It really is. It doesn't just, sleep isn't just about rejuvenating your body and helping to keep it strong, meaning that when we are lacking in sleep, it has a direct effect on our consciousness, on our ability to think consciously about how we're feeling. And so if I had a night where I did not get a good night's sleep, maybe I only got a couple of hours, and then now I'm in my day where I'm feeling lethargic, and that then causes more stress because I'm not as ready to go. I'm not as in tune with the work that I'm doing. So the stress is building up. What happens from a psychological neural is that we will then automatically go to a fight or flight, meaning we're no longer operating from our prefrontal cortex, which gives us the ability to think clearly and consciously. We begin to operate, or a different part of our brain kicks in, and we go into this fight or flight stress place. And so sleep, when we get great sleep, we are able to, that part of the brain is functioning clearly. And so sleep is one of them.
And I know, I just want to break in. I know that I'm not sure about for police, but for fire, this is a huge issue because they're on 48 hour shifts. And so they get woken up multiple times where their station is,
Yeah.
sometimes more than a couple of times a night. And it starts to become a pattern where even when they're on their off days, they're waking up like that. And so they're constantly in that fight or flight. And we all know, like you just said, physiologically, that wreaks havoc on your brain. It changes the chemistry in your brain, which also helps develop that PTSI. So,
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And here's the science is clear,
yeah, it's
right?
science. This
The
isn't just
science,
opinion.
exactly. The science is clear about our mental health and all the factors that contribute to a deteriorated mental health. What has not caught up is organizations
Yeah.
that employ, right, our civil servants, and recognizing the science
Yeah.
so that so that our officers, so that our firemen and firewomen have the best possible environment
Yeah.
so that they can serve and protect us.
And it's not like we understand, someone has to be there on night shift. Like it's going to happen. It's going to continue. There's no way around that. But like you said, giving them the tools, and I'm not a doctor. I don't know what that looks like. If you need to give people a certain amount of time off for their brains to catch up on their sleep, I don't know what that is, but said, getting it organized. Yes, we know this is a problem and this is what you need to do. This is what our officers, our firefighters need to do to make up for that loss, so that it doesn't continue going down the rabbit hole.
Exactly right. And
Sorry.
that's why, and no, and that is why we need to continually speak up
Yeah.
to raise awareness to the mental health and suicide, issue that is out there. Because the reality is, the reality is that for every suicide that takes place, there are 27 other individuals who have attempted suicide, and there are hundreds of individuals who are contemplating and even planning their suicide. Hundreds.
Yeah.
So what does it tell us about the 6 officers that took their own life within a 6-month period? That is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. No, and you're right, because when Eric died, within that week, I had a couple of firefighters from his department tell me, I can tell you a handful of guys that have come to me and are thinking of doing the same thing. And I'm like,
Yes.
what are you talking about? But yeah, and still to this day. And I mean, I'm happy that they're coming forward, because that is something that Eric didn't do. So not keeping it to themselves.
And that's why conversations save lives.
Yeah.
When we are talking and the conversation is ongoing, right? We're in a place where we're doing something about our stress and anxiety and PTSD and PTSI, did you say?
Yeah, injury. I'm trying to
Injury.
start using the PTSI term, because it's an
Yeah.
injury. They're not it's with first responders. It's not a disease that's caused by, external, well, it is an external factor, but you know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
something that's genetically wrong with you, a disease. It's a constant exposure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the environment
Yeah.
that is affecting our mental state,
Yeah.
And so that's why when people are talking, when conversations are happening, right, we're moving towards a solution
Yeah.
as
Well,
opposed to going the opposite way.
and do you think that may partially just trying to come up with a solution and being solutions oriented? I sometimes feel like departments, because no one knows what the solution is, because like Christy and I always say, there isn't any one solution, because everybody has everyone reasoning their own background, their own DNA structure, their own upbringing, which may lead them down the path to suicide. So there isn't any one solution that's going to work for there's no catch-all, right?
Mhm.
So that's why we have to come at it at all different directions. But I wonder if, number one, that's hard work for upper management to take on. It's a lot of work for people that are already overworked. And number
Right.
two, they may not have the resources to know what those solutions are. So I often wonder if departments, chiefs, whomever, brush it under the rug or don't take it as seriously, not because they don't care, but because they just simply don't know what to do.
Really, that's a conversation and a subject of not knowing what to do that isn't talked about enough. And here's what I mean by that. We all share this problem, a common problem. And this common problem that we have is what's called self-deception.
Mhm.
Self-deception is this idea that we lie to ourselves about the solutions that are out there. We lie to ourselves about what we are doing to help other people.
Mhm.
And so what we do, as you said, we brush things under the rug when we are self-deceived. And so, as you said, we brush thinking that it'll just go away. And here's the thing, we're not even thinking about it. We're just doing it because of maybe the pressure that we're under in order to, from our superiors, right? We're all under a certain amount of pressure. And that pressure is coming out in us looking a certain way,
Mhm.
right? And so we won't talk about suicide, or we won't really do anything about it because until it happens, right? And then when
Yeah.
it happens, we put all of this
We start.
attention on it,
Yeah.
and then a couple days we brush it on the rug
Yeah.
until it happens again. And that's why the conversation cannot stop.
Yeah. And I
It
vowed,
has to be mainstream.
yes, I know. I vowed when Eric died, something inside of me clicked when I started getting all the information about the data behind PTSI within first responders and what had just happened and what my life had just been for the last probably 6 to 7 years without even realizing it. I said, you know what? I am not, you guys are going to see me. I'm going to be at every Christmas event. I'm going to be at every event that you have. You're going to see my face and you're going to see Donovan's. We're going to continue talking about this until some kind of
So
change is made.
Robyn, that's what you said right there, to
Mhm.
solving our self-deception problem. And that is to recognize other people as
Yeah.
people, as human beings. When we see others as people who matter just like we do, right?
Yeah.
Not just acknowledge that, oh, they're a person. I mean, really, you see their needs, their
Yeah.
cares, their concerns. You recognize that they have stresses and anxieties just like we do. When we really see people as people, that's when change happens.
Yeah.
Otherwise, opposite of that is when we don't see people as people that matter, we see them as objects. We objectify
Right.
people. We
Right.
see them as vehicles to help us achieve our objectives. We see others as irrelevant, or we see people as simply people that don't really matter enough.
Well, who's better at disconnecting and compartmentalizing than a first responder?
Well, they're trained to.
Yeah,
They're
that's what
trained
I'm
to. You
saying.
have to, because how could you
can't.
possibly do that job?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And that's just it. It's like, it's good on one hand, you have to have that skill, but this is where it starts bleeding into being a human being. You cannot, that is consciousness, right? That's that, then my cat and dog over
Yes.
here is that we have the empathy. We are human beings and we need each other and we have feelings towards each other. So I don't know what the answer to all this is, but I don't
Having a
know, maybe this
conversation
podcast is.
when we continue to have this conversation with people, not only on our podcast, but people that we are standing in line with, people that we are working with, people that
Yeah.
are randomly walking by. That's where the solution is. That's where the change happens.
Yeah.
One person at a time, one word at a time, because that person might not hear it, but the person that's
Yeah.
walking by, I'm in sales, so I unintentionally hear and listen for, an opportunity to benefit somebody. Well, there's other people that
Yeah.
do that. they're going to catch on. They're going to turn around. I'm like, I cannot walk by without saying, I'm here. You're not alone. Whatever that looks like to get that conversation started.
And Christy, that is such an important point, what you just said. When we see others as people, when we continually have this conversation, what we do is we then invite that person to see us as a person.
Mhm.
And what's happening right now in our political world, right? If we're talking about the city of Chicago, there is a lot of us against them.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a lot of pointing fingers and blaming and justification instead of working together. And so when we do this, right, towards somebody, towards an opponent, towards an adversary, what do? They do
Yeah.
this.
Right.
But when we begin to see them as human beings who matter, just like we do, what we then do is we invite them to see us as human beings. And that's where collaboration and real solutions begin to happen, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to solve this suicide epidemic by fighting against one
Absolutely
another.
not.
We need to come together, and we need to do it in love and compassion and caring.
And we
I
would like
completely
people to,
agree.
oh, I'm sorry, Robin. I would
And
like
it
to
has
make, sorry, my computer froze again.
Yeah, you're freezing.
I'm so sorry. I don't know if we might have to re-record this after as
No,
many
it'll
times
be
as it's
fine.
frozen.
It's not that bad.
Okay, good. I feel like that if we just opened up our ears and listened and not wait until it has affected your family, your department, your employer, your children, whoever, your neighbor, don't wait until then to understand, because you do not have to be wearing these shoes
no,
to
right.
understand. You just have to be willing to open your ears, not only listen, but also hear what they're saying.
Yeah, like really hear
Yeah.
what
Yes.
they're saying.
Yes.
And I love what you said about not being combative and not pointing the finger. I think that that is a huge piece of it. I couldn't agree with
Yes.
you more on that. So Eric's department, Alameda County Fire Department, I sing their praises all the time because they have really stepped up to the plate and trying to come up with solutions. And I hope the people within the department feel that as well. They've
Mhm.
invited me in to be part of their peer support team that they've really built out and worked with some amazing people to get it off the ground. And mind you, that peer support team was, but it wasn't being utilized. And it's the same reasons that a lot of them aren't, because people are afraid of things ending up on their permanent record
Right.
and things getting back to the chiefs and it affecting their career. So they've done a great job on making that something that people actually want to use. But when all of this happened, there was a moment where a finger could have been pointed at me. I'm not going to get into too much details, but there was a moment. Anytime there's a suicide, at least in California here, I was the person that was there. So there was questioning that happened towards me. So that just few moments of that scared me enough. I wouldn't ever want the finger pointed at me for something that I did not intentionally do or did not do.
Right.
So why would I go to that department, to his department, who did not have the tools to help him, did not understand what was going on, and point the finger towards them?
Right.
When just as easily someone could do that towards me,
Right.
when the decision was ultimately his. So I went to them out of love. And yes, I say, you're going to see my face and you're going to see my son's face. It's a reminder that he was a human being, but I want to work with you to make sure that this never happens again. And it took a while. It didn't happen right away. I think both of us on both sides were like, I don't know who this, I didn't know them that well. Don't know if this is going to work, but look, 3.5 years later and we're working together. I'm going to a conference with them in San Diego for peer support. And it's a beautiful, beautiful relationship that we have now. And I'm so grateful for it. And I've been told that, yes, we are saving lives. We have saved lives already. And I can't tell you, from somebody who has lost their life partner to suicide, to know that there is somebody there so close to me, possibly, I don't know who it is, multiple, no idea, that we've helped. My work is done, you know? That's
Yeah.
what I'm here for.
And I think it's important because you talk about that you guys were working together, even for the departments
Yeah.
that maybe aren't working together. For me, I have so many questions that I just want to understand so I can continue to learn where I missed it. My kids will have questions one day. If they don't, I know they do already, but that they may not be able to answer, but maybe this is going to happen again. Obviously, we know that 3% of the children that have lost a parent to suicide do attempt or take their lives. So that's a huge concern and worry for me. I want to
Right.
understand every aspect. I'm not trying to blame anybody.
No.
I'm trying to gather what we can do different.
Right.
And I'm hoping one day I'll be able to have that conversation, with the department and just say, what can we do different? What can we
Mhm.
change to make it just a little bit easier to have that conversation and not feel threatened of any concerns?
And
So,
sometimes it just takes that one person in the department who's willing to be your like liaison, I guess,
right.
for lack of a better word, to help bridge that gap in communication,
Well,
and
and
then eventually, yeah.
it's a communication. That's what
Yeah.
stopped me there, because communication is key, because we all communicate differently. And they might not understand the word or the transition in a conversation that can make it open. They
Yeah.
might feel like, because they are trained how they are trained to expect that, having that knowing, getting to that place where you can trust the person sitting in front of you, that isn't out on the street. So we're talking department, family, getting the ability to have that feeling of trust can all be done with certain transitions of words.
Right.
They're the comforting words, whatever those are. Those I have to figure out, because obviously, again, that's going to depend on people. But
Mhm.
if they do, they can still see that they are strong, that they can protect, that they can do their job in a safe way because they are still diligent at what they're doing, but able to talk and make a change in the department and show that that's strength. Vulnerability is one of the most strong, I don't know how else to say it, strongest things you can possibly be. And I think
Yeah.
that takes more
Right.
courage to be vulnerable than not to not have a conversation, to not, to deny yourself or your department
Right.
that. Show the strength. And that comes from leadership. That comes from everybody. That's across the board. Show you're vulnerable
Mhm.
and still let them see you can do your job 500%. And that's going to make it easier for everybody in the departments
Mhm.
and our communities. I mean, as a whole,
Right. I mean, it trickles down.
it does. It does.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time. I want to
Starting to
thank you.
get really bad.
What? It froze that time?
Yeah.
I'm so afraid. I'm sorry, everyone. I don't know what's going on. I've never had this
All right.
problem before. We've done this 26
We'll
other
have a
times.
disclaimer.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna.
Oh,
Christy's
it's all
technical
good.
issue. Yeah. Maybe if I had an internet provider that wanted to provide me. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No. Am I kidding? No, I don't know what's going on. I've never had this issue, so I apologize. But now I lost my train of thought. Hi.
Welcome to Beyond the First.
Welcome to Beyond the First Response, where sometimes you're talking so much you forget what your response was going to be.
Welcome to my world, Christy.
Welcome to inside, a little hidden inside my head. What's next? Okay, but seriously, we're partnering with you, helping you along. What can the challenge coins again will be go to challenge Operation Serve and Protect, which we'll have on
Yes.
our site, on our
Yes.
YouTube video. We can also, will there be other opportunities? Are you going to make this your annual thing to do, is district to
Yes.
district?
Yes, definitely. So this is the second year. We're going to do this event again next year at the same time,
Perfect.
right? Our walk, right, took place a couple of weeks ago. September, in fact, it was September 20th through the 22nd. We're going to do it at the exact same time next year. And we want to involve more people, right? We want to increase the volume on the conversation, get more people talking and walking, so that we can recognize that no one is outside of the spectrum of having difficulties in life, right?
Yep.
Not one of us is perfect. All of us are either going through something or have gone through something. And so let's just, let's all just come to that conclusion, challenging situation. So we're gonna what's next besides that is we need to deliver 12,000 coins to our officers. Right? That is the promise we made when we gave our officers these little pennies. This is a placeholder. It's a promise that we're going to deliver 12,000 challenge coins. So we want to do that within the next couple of months. When we go back to the districts, we're also going to bring more thank you letters and cards. So that's another request. Keep those thank you letters and cards coming in.
We did forget to mention that. I did mean to mention that in the beginning.
Yep.
Robert also passed out thank you cards to every district that people wrote. People all over. Your schools can do it. Yeah, the schools can do it. Your employees can do it. You could sit there in front of the TV writing thank you notes.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know they're thanked and they're appreciated.
And that makes a big difference. If you've ever received a handwritten thank you, and when you read it, you're like, oh, that is so like wonderful to hear, to receive. And so imagine giving a district hundreds of thank you letters and cards that they can read through, that let the officer know that they matter, that they're cared for, that they're appreciated. Right?
What address to send for those thank you cards?
At P.O. Box 3672, Barrington, Illinois, 60011.
60011. Perfect. So P.O. Box 3672, Barrington, Illinois, and 0011.
Yes.
6011.
60011.
So when I write the thank you notes, so I write like a 4th grade boy. So I couldn't read my own writing.
Okay.
So letting you know.
It's
All
fine.
right.
I mean, they're not even teaching cursive in school anymore. So
I know. Well,
I can't read
I
my
got
writing.
C in penmanship my entire life. So I apologize. We will have that out there on our YouTube video as well. We will put out there the address. Please get those out there throughout the year. And
we don't want to stop that. We want
No.
to keep delivering these
Okay.
reminders to our officers that they matter. Because that's what they are. They're a little reminder, right? They will interrupt that negative voice that we have, and it'll remind the officer that, wow, I am doing a good job. Wow, people see me as a superhero. What? And so we want to recreate our officers' identity into something green, right? Into an identity that they feel confident and they feel proud of the work that they're doing.
Yes.
Well, the identity that they were seeking and that they had when they first started the job.
Yes. And that's what I hear over and over and over again.
Yeah.
When I first started, I was really proud to be an officer. When I first started, I felt appreciated. Now, what we're hearing, what they're saying is that they don't feel like their back, that anybody's got their back.
Yeah.
They don't feel proud. Like they'll purposely not wear their police shirt when they're out in public.
Yeah.
Right.
It's heartbreaking.
Of course.
It is.
Of course it is. Identity is everything.
Yeah.
And providing people that ability to express their identity in a healthy way will keep people from staying in the dark too long.
Yes.
And we'll
I
see
get
the
that.
light of what the community as a whole really thinks of.
Yeah.
So thank you, Robert, for joining us today. We are so
Yeah.
grateful, and we look forward to talking to you again. So maybe when we
Yeah.
get those thank you notes, those coins are out and you're ready to deliver. Let's see what we can do. Get you back on here. Go out
Okay.
there with you, and get them out. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.